Everybody's one link.
Hey, everybody, it's Jonas Lamas here with Tezos Community. And we're trying a slightly a new format here today. We've got an open forum discussion with two of the hottest guys in the Tezos sphere these days. We've got Jovan and we've got Mike on board, and we're going to just throw out some ideas, talk about what's going on in the world of Tezos and the broader world of cryptocurrency, and we're hoping you all enjoy this conversation. So let me welcome both you guys. Say hi to everybody. What's going on in your world today?
Okay.
Hi, this is Mike from My Crypto Delegate. Just here chatting about Tezos as usual. Jovan.
Yeah, Jovan, guys. Everybody knows me. Reddit, Jovi1945, on Twitter at JVDola or JoviJVDola. Yeah, and we're here to talk about some Tezos.
Cool, guys. Well, glad to have you hanging out here today. The first topic I wanted to throw out to everybody and talk about is what is going on with the foundation. We've as Jovan did in his wrap up last week, he got online and talked about the crazy tweets from Johan that happened during the crypto conference in Switzerland. And one of those tweets was a promise that more information would be forthcoming this week. Here it is, Saturday, more than a week later, and no information's forthcoming. You guys have any idea what's going on over there?
Yeah, I have no clue. I read those things, and that's the most communication that's come from him in 6 months, are those tweets alone. So it'll be interesting if he comes out with anything more, but I'm not all that hopeful that it'll be anything really meaningful at this point.
Oh, I was reading up on Swiss Foundation code and things like that. And this is straight from, we should put the source for this in the video, but he's not required to communicate under Swiss law. As the president of a foundation, he's his own legal entity in a way, and he doesn't really have to communicate, but he does have to fulfill the foundation's purpose. And according to everything that I've read, the only purpose of the Tezos Foundation is to promote the protocol financially and things like that, which he hasn't done. So
yeah,
I'm not sure how the Swiss authorities are going to come down on this. They don't really like to get involved unless they absolutely have to, and that's why this guy is able to get away with this. And he made a comment. Remember, he says, and he was really talking about Americans for the most part, because we're the ones bitching and complaining. We don't understand the difference between a trust and a foundation. So then I went and looked up Swiss foundations under Swiss law today. And so he most definitely doesn't, he's not required to reach out and send text messages. So the fact that he did all that is odd.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think just in the process of doing his actual job to promote the Tezos ecosystem, he needs to reach out to at least a handful of people.
Yeah.
Pay his bills, foster a strong community, and also help the code development. And from what I've seen, there hasn't been any of that in literally 7 months now. So you're right. He doesn't have to communicate with the community, but he needs to communicate with people who are trying to develop a platform. And I haven't seen that.
Right. I can personally attest to that. As the guy who got him to agree to sponsor our first Tezos meetup way back in early August last year. Yeah, I put my credit card down on that event, and he said he would reimburse me, and I have yet gotten a reimbursement from the foundation. So,
but it was a good event. I enjoyed it.
That money would have been nice to have been put in Ethereum or something like that.
Hey, so did the money also come from the Tezos Foundation for the Betanet meetup? Like literally. My buddy put that together, and he didn't come out. I don't think if he did come out of his pocket, it was supposed to be reimbursed as well. But like, there was free food. The Tezos bag showed up. The stickers, mycryptodelegate.com stickers. So I'm not really sure how that all flowed in.
I sent those to you guys.
Okay.
From here, but I have not heard of any sort of foundation contribution to the meetups.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if he's got Johan to agree to reimburse the bags and the food and all that kind of stuff as well. But as it seems pretty clear from the folks who have supposed to be paid by their salary to the folks who have supposed to have been reimbursed, really no money has been flowing out of the foundations for the last several months at least.
Most importantly, to actually pay for the code. I mean, that's really the most important bill paying, is to pay for the actual code development, which is what we're all, waiting for so the system can launch.
Yeah, totally. Sure. Before we move off of the foundation, one of the key things for everybody to keep an eye on is what happens between now and the end of the month. At the end of January, the foundation is under the gun to appoint a replacement board member for Guido, who stepped away back in December, I think, and. The understanding I have is that the foundation authority is pushing the current foundation board members to make that appointment happen. I think it'll be really interesting to see if they're able to come to consensus and get somebody put into that seat, so that theoretically, once they have a functioning board, they may be able to unstick themselves and get back on track. But I'm not optimistic about that happening.
Yeah, if I could just chime in real quick. So according to Swiss Law Foundation, the purpose of a foundation has to be known to authorities before they approve that a foundation is even created. And so for the Tezos Foundation to be even operating, the Swiss government knows the purpose of that foundation, and the purpose of the Tezos Foundation is literally to fund the Tezos project and all of its ecosystems and things like that. So to change a purpose's foundation is not overnight, right? So if Johan wanted to change the purpose of the foundation, meaning take the money and do whatever he kind of wants with it, that is a timely process. It can take years, right? And in the meantime, the foundation's purpose is still to fund the project. And so this has to get going according to Swiss law. And so, eventually totally. This is going to happen. Like, the money's going to flow towards Tezos. I don't think he's not going to disappear with the $1 billion.
No, he can't disappear with it. And that's one thing we should also highlight, is that just because the funds aren't necessarily flowing right now, it doesn't mean that they're not safe.
Right.
Yeah, they're probably in one of the safest places in the entire world, in Switzerland. So they're not going anywhere. It's just that we want them to actually be spent on the project development. So the funds are safe. This is the point.
Correct.
Yeah, totally. And the other forcing factor in all of this that it makes a kind of a ticking time bomb out there is the fact that there are a number of class action lawsuits that are going through, the first legal motions against the foundation. And I know that on Twitter this week, one of the lawyers out there did a kind of a brief analysis of publicly filed documents on those lawsuits. Sounds like the foundations and the Brightmans have some fairly competent attorneys in preventing early kind of discovery, if you will. But I at least this lawyer's thesis was that discovery could happen by April, and that's kind of a major forcing function to try and get the chain live by that point in time as well.
I know that I read an article. McDonald is a plaintiff. The last name is McDonald. He's one of the suing parties, and I believe a federal judge ruled on a separate occasion to not freeze the funds in the foundation. How he would even do that is kind of weird, because Switzerland is its own jurisdiction, right? But anyways, and then secondly, the discovery was denied as well by a federal.
I think that might have been the California case. Was that the one that was done in California?
Right.
Yeah, that was a while ago that the judge kind of just said there's not a whole lot that they could do from there.
Right, because
I think that was a good solid month ago.
Tezos, futures are $4? I mean, they're well above the ICO price.
Oh, yeah. I mean, once they launch, to have a lawsuit, you have to show some sort of damage.
Right.
And right now, there's not a lot of liquidity because the futures are just in one location, and you can't use your ICO tokens to liquidate. But once they actually launch, assuming that the price is higher than the ICO, I'm not a lawyer, but it seems like it'd be very difficult to prove damages when what you own is worth more than what you spent.
Right, exactly.
And so that's one of the other strong pushes to finish the code, launch the platform, make good on the promise that Tezos made when the ICO was done, and that's coming up relatively soon.
Right.
I don't think anyone has a specific date, but it's within somewhat near eyesight at this point.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think we've started, when you follow the GitLab repository, when you listen to the comments that Arthur's making through his updates and through the documentation that's being released, you can see that there's a light at the end of the tunnel as far as getting the mainnet launched.
Right.
Have you guys got any insights into some of the recent announcements on the dev side that give you encouragement?
Yeah, Mike, would you want to go first, or?
Well, yeah, I mean, I keep updated as much as I can, obviously, with the code, and there's always new publications coming out, new features. He just he launched some new documentation the other day, talking about some details, which I think you can go over. Yep. But yeah, I mean, there's obviously progress. If anyone who's actually involved on a daily basis in the code itself, who's actually running a node and is doing baking transactions, endorsements, and sending, Monopoly Tezos back and forth to each other, there's a lot of progress. There is a real system there. It's not a white paper, just a white paper. It is a real platform that is currently up and running.
For sure.
That's being developed every single day.
Yeah.
So I think that the combination of the fact that this is a real technology, it works, and the funds are secure, I would hope would put a lot of people's fear, uncertainty, and doubt aside.
Yeah. I agree with that. A while back, Arthur said that most of the code has been largely written. You got to remember, we got to keep in mind that Tezos, the actual project in terms of the code, started years ago. So when we talk about putting a lot of time and effort into blockchains and things like that, Tezos has been doing that for a long time. And so hardening, all of this, it's dealing with formal verification. It's trying to implement things that and solve problems that plague other blockchains. Not to mention the self-amending process in Tezos kind of makes it forever young, because according to the white paper, it can take on new innovations as they come. You know what I mean? And that's very important when you really think about the longevity of a blockchain, especially from an investor standpoint. But with that being said, what Arthur also said is that they were working on the documentation, and so the latest GitLab repository by him, it was authored just a day ago. Proof of stake in Tezos is part of that documentation process, and what we're talking about here is we're looking at block size, delegation, delegates, active and passive delegates, the roles. There's about 10,000 tokens per role, and we'll add a link for all this stuff so you guys can check this out. This is the actual mechanism. The cycles are discussed here. Security deposits are discussed here and documented, along with banking rights, endorsements, inflation, the random seed protocol, and denunciations. So I'm not sure if these are the final permanent parameters, but this is the documentation for code. So forget what.
Yeah, I think one of the most interesting things that Arthur said in his weekly dev update about this topic yesterday, when he released it, was that if you think about the path to having a stable mainnet launched, the remaining dev work can be divided into several different camps. One of them are algorithmic decisions that need to be made before you could consider launching your mainnet. And he called a lot of these things the constants, the mathematical models that need to be put in place and agreed to and decided before you can turn the net live. And these are the topics that you were just talking about. He talked about economic constants, things like how much does it cost for gas in the system, and how much return does a baker get, and all those kinds of things. There's the economic constants and the underlying algorithms that power those constants. And then there is the finishing edges on the infrastructure and on the protocol. Right. Arthur's perspective from the video that he launched, he said that with the economic constant models in place, we now can launch a mainnet with real live tokens on it without having a engineering risk of hard fork to roll back and fix those economic constants.
Right, exactly.
Right, and so go ahead, Mike.
I was going to say though that there are economic constants for now for the system, but I think that over time, everything can be adjusted. And I don't think that, so you say, will all those numbers be exactly the same a year from now? Maybe not. As more people get involved, as there's more people staking, as the system matures, all the constants will most likely have to adjust as well.
Yeah.
The only thing constant is change. So
yeah, right. And so what I think Arthur was getting to here is that the underlying algorithms that power the constants are now in place.
Right.
And so we won't if you had to rip out one of those algorithms and put a totally different type of algorithm in place, you might risk a hard fork on the network from an engineering perspective. Arthur's perspective, at least reading between the lines from his last video, is that we've crossed that chasm, and we're now to a point where the risk of engineering having to roll things back to a hard fork situation is being minimized, and almost all of the additional engineering work that needs to be done is additive to the core release of what can become the mainnet. And so I think we're approaching a point where we can move out of hardcore development. We're finishing things. We need to move into the stress testing on the network now. We have to do penetration testing, and we have to have third-party audit of the code done before we can get the mainnet live. And I think that's really the main effort that needs to happen over the next weeks or months before the dev team's going to feel comfortable.
Now, is there a time perspective on hardening the network, and or is it just varies from project to project?
Yeah, I don't know the details on the time frame of that, other than I could imagine, given that we're an OCaml shop here, we'll have to have independent experts in OCaml go through the code and do a code review and audit of things. That's the good news is that the core devs in Paris are working with the top OCaml teams already. So I suspect that they will know who that is and they'll be able to put that in place. But I don't think it happens overnight. I'm sure it's a multi-week process.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Just seen a lot of comments on Reddit. Sorry, go ahead, Mike. Sorry about that.
Well, I was just saying on the code audit, these things you don't want to rush. And for this type of thing, it could literally take possibly up to a couple months for code audit. It could be less, it could be more, but it's not something that you just bring a team in, 3 days later, they're done.
Right.
You want this to be a comprehensive check of all the code, because, as we know, any sort of hacks or issues with any blockchains have happened because there's been, slight glitches in the code that have allowed that is undesirable.
Yeah. No.
And so to get the system hardened, audited, and checked thoroughly before launch is well worth the time, even if it means, taking a little bit of time and people have to wait to get their tokens.
Yeah, I agree.
Better to have a secure network.
Yeah, I totally agree. We see what happens when blockchains launch, and partial half-ass or just without checking the code. I mean, and hardening the network, you can lose followers, you can lose investors, you can lose a lot of traction, and so
yeah, you lose trust.
Yep, that's true.
And we got to remember, right? This is a third generation blockchain, right? This is not a project that's being built on top of Ethereum. That's just an additive code base to Ethereum that needs to be audited. This is from the ground up, a new language, a new set of technologies, and a new underlying set of protocols. So it's a big project. It's always been a big project.
Yeah.
It's a big project with a lot of attention. And for those out there who are hating on not having their coins, this next step of getting things audited and fixing any penetration issues, this is something you really want to have done correctly before the net goes live.
Mm-hmm.
No doubt.
True. I would like to comment just on the Betanet. So could we have I know Arthur had mentioned a Betanet with real parameters where you can have real transactions and things like that. Does the Betanet can that come before a complete hardening of the network? I mean, nobody wants to lose their tokens, right? A bug can still like you can still have a buggy bug in the beta.
Totally. I think it. Go ahead, Mike.
Well, I was just saying that there's obviously a certain amount of hardening that has to happen even for Betanet when you start launching, real tokens. But it's very common for new platforms to launch in stages, to where you have just the base functionality that gets launched, the ability to trade tokens, the ability to have a wallet, and then you slowly add layers on top of that in time. That's a great thing about really any third generation, especially Tezos blockchain, is that it's modular. So it's designed specifically to roll out with fewer features, and then have another feature added a few months later, features tweaked. All the modules get slid in and out in time. So will it have to be hardened for the beta? Yeah, of course it will.
Yeah.
But will it be as hardened as it will be for a year from now? No, because that's the whole purpose. It's supposed to evolve, grow, and get more complex, and all that complexity will therefore need to be hardened as well on each iteration.
Yep. I think at the Bitcoin meetup that Arthur spoke at in Switzerland last month, I think he mentioned the possibility of the Betanet, and one of the points that he made was that it would be important for the core engineers to hold a hard fork card at that point in time, so that if things in the Betanet go terribly awry before all the code is audited, before all the security implementations are put in place, they can rewind things back and reset things. So,
and they have that card for a year after launch, correct?
At least, I think that is. At least.
I thought it was at least 2. They have the veto card is on protocol updates. They have the veto card.
Mm-hmm. And that's a slightly different issue, right? What I was talking about is the underlying concept that if they do put a Betanet out there, and the tokens do go live on the Betanet, you're going to have to opt in to taking your tokens, and when you opt in, you're going to have to acknowledge that things could change radically, and maybe you may not actually want to trade your tokens in the Betanet environment, because in some unfortunate event where things get rolled back, that could mess up the ledger, and you would have a hard fork that your tokens are stranded on over here somewhere else. So I think that's what Arthur was indicating with there. Now what you're saying, Jovi, is that after the mainnet launch, the foundation has a veto card on on-chain protocol improvements over some 1 or 2 year period. I don't remember what it is, which is an interesting play as well, given all the foundation shenanigans. So we'll see what happens. Yeah.
I mean, I think in theory you want that veto to happen, just because they're going to be rolling out so many updates in the next year, 2 years, that you don't want every single one to go to a vote. They have a roadmap of updates, so it would be chaos in the first few months if we all had to vote on every single protocol update, knowing how many there's going to be out there.
Yeah, for sure.
Once it's fully stable and all the features are pretty much launched, and then we start getting third-party updates, people who actually write code for like some sort of a bounty. Those are the ones that we're all going to be voting on, and trying to see if we can implement those. And then probably by that time, the foundation will no longer be vetoing, vetoing those sort of things.
Totally. I think, a couple of points. One is it's going to be really amazing when we start having third-party bounties for pull requests onto the chain, onto the protocol. I mean, can you imagine when we have $1 million bounty out there for some code that's been written, and that pull request goes through, and we have some brand new major functionality released on the chain by a core group of developers, and it all was done through a bounty and a DAO type of program, rather than somebody trying to do an ICO on top of Tezos. It's going to be really a game changer type of functionality.
Yeah, it's going to be really cool.
Wow.
Yeah, the other point I want to make about the future opportunity for Tezos is, as I've made it known on Reddit and on Twitter, I've had the opportunity to talk with Diego a bit as he was visiting us out here in California, and the work that he is doing behind the scenes on interfacing and interacting with research institutions and and core scientific groups that have really advanced research going on in the blockchain space is pretty interesting. So once the foundation gets itself unstuck, and once funding is available to fund more advanced capabilities, and because there is such a large endowment available there, I think we're going to see investments being made over a very long time horizon for very new and powerful technologies that are going to roll into the Tezos ecosystem over the next decade. And we're going to have some of the best and brightest minds in computer science globally working on building those things out from a scientific and engineering perspective on a very long time scale. That's going to be pretty interesting for longevity of the chain.
Yeah, yeah. I get questions all the time from folks who are new to blockchain technology and cryptocurrencies, and they always confuse the two a little bit, whereas, cryptocurrencies can be used to, just buy services and goods, and they run on top of a blockchain, but the blockchain technology can be used for much more. And so what do you guys, what are some cool use cases that that you guys think will be sought on Tezos? So like we see Propy on Ethereum.
Well,
I think that's an awesome idea. Propy, freaking great.
one of my favorite, I think one of my favorite use cases is fractional ownership of assets.
Right.
When before, if you bought a house, if you bought a classic car or a expensive piece of artwork, you owned 100% of it. Maybe you had a friend who you split the cost with. With blockchain, you can split the ownership into 1,000 pieces and basically turn it into a mini stock market for your house, for your painting, for your classic car. So you can sell, shares of pieces of assets, and then people can trade those shares back and forth. So you get a lot more liquidity in a fluid marketplace of assets. So I think that we're going to see a massive change in just how we even perceive assets and the ownership of assets. You could hypothetically only own, you could buy a house, you could, split off shares of it, own 51% of the house, still live there, right, and fund, a small business with the amount that you raised. And it's not even considered a loan because you actually sold, part of it. And because you have blockchain, you have complete complete provenance tracking of all the shares, all the transactions, everything.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to be a complete game changer for all types of assets.
No, yeah,
very
totally,
cool.
Yeah.
One of the along those lines, one of the cool things that happens around here in Palo Alto is I look out my kitchen window out on Loma Verde Avenue, and I'm always seeing self-driving cars drive by. Like
Really?
there are 15 different self-driving car projects within 3 miles of where I live here, from the big guys like the Google Waymo project and Ford and GM and everybody down to Stanford and a bunch of other folks. And one of the major things that's coming, from an asset ownership perspective, is what's going to happen in the automotive space, right? People are, as self-driving cars and self-driving car fleets emerge, people are going to be less and less likely to buy a car and keep it parked in their driveway, right? Instead, traditionally people today think, well, we're all going to subscribe to some kind of Uber or Lyft program and have, a self-driving car available to us to come pick us up whenever we need. Throw the blockchain into that, as you're saying, Mike, and we can take out the rent seeker, we can take out the middleman that is Uber, right? And instead, bands of people can come together for very low overhead, own many assets like that, shared amongst themselves with an off-chain organizational system that tracks usage and optimizes things. And at the end of the day, besides the money that you've put into the blockchain for buying into that group, you just got to pay a little bit for electricity and you're off and running for your vehicles.
Yeah. Boom.
Yeah, we're going to see some pretty exciting innovations in the next 18 months to 10 years. A lot of the assumptions that we have on how we get around the types of businesses that are out there, everything's going to change a mindset because of some sort of implementation of blockchain technology. It's not necessarily just going to be cryptocurrency.
Right.
That's just what people think because it's very flashy. But the underlying technology will change how we think of everyday life.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
And the reason why Tezos is so important in this discussion is because of that third generation nature and the fact that we are talking about a platform that's purpose built for high value smart contracts. Right. Ethereum, led the way here, but it's fairly old technology that wasn't spec'd out or engineered with this particular kind of use case in mind, right? And so you got, at the end of the day, the most important blockchains are either going to be the stores of wealth, or they're going to be the ones that provide the smart contract capabilities. And I think we have an opportunity to be the real driver here.
No, yeah, I totally agree. As a matter of fact, is this the position paper? Yeah, here we go. L.M. Goodman. Who do you guys think that is? The author of the white papers?
Well,
that's kind of an inside joke, I think. Yeah.
So
I think it's Arthur, to be honest with you.
Yeah, well, that's what I think. Let's see, where does it say this? Okay, yeah, Tezos truly aims to be the last cryptocurrency.
Yeah. Well, it's because of its ability to be updated. I think the reality is that we're going to find that there will never be just one currency.
Right.
You're going to have different platforms that mature, and I think if you could define what would be a fourth generation, it's going to be a third generation that knows how to talk to the other third generations. You see what I mean? Right. Mm-hmm. And I think that just like the dollar didn't take over the world, the yen didn't take over the world. You're not going to have one platform that's ever just going to completely take over. I think.
Go ahead. Sorry.
But I think that you're going to have a few that are doing really great things, and then sooner or later they're going to have to start talking to each other a little bit. Yep. And if you can get that to happen, which I think that Tezos has that ability in the future,
it does.
To upgrade and actually start interacting with other cryptocurrencies and other blockchains, then you're going to see the next exponential leap beyond what we're seeing with this one. That's my personal opinion. That's my personal take.
Yeah, no, that is correct. That is actually, that's in, I'm not sure if it's in the position paper or the technical paper, but yes, Tezos is going to have the ability to communicate with other blockchains and to function with them in the future and things like that. So that's really cool.
I'm really looking forward to seeing how well all the ecosystems start to integrate with each other. But I think that's going to happen. I don't think that's going to happen for a while. I think that there's still a lot of maturity that needs to happen with each individual blockchain. There needs to be a lot more valid use cases. Right now, people are kind of scrambling, trying to figure out, well, we have this cool technology, but what do we actually do with it? There's a lot of hypotheticals, but pretty fast, we're starting to see real use cases. Yeah, and once that gets mature, then those use cases will start talking to each other. And that's when things are really going to get exciting.
The decentralized application on top of Ethereum, Propy, just made their first sale not too long ago in the Ukraine. So it was a gentleman who used the Propy platform to purchase a home. And according to some other news articles, they're even communicating with the governments of Vermont and California to work out the details on how people can use the Propy platform in those areas to buy homes using cryptocurrency. As a matter of fact, one of the Green Bay Packers party houses that's close to the stadium, it's like a ranch style house, right? It's like a middle-class neighborhood house, but it's expensive and it's valuable because of who parties there and how close it is to the stadium. And they're selling it on the Propy platform for Bitcoin, like $1 million in Bitcoin. So that's awesome. So we see it happening. It's happening now. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, there's just locally, there's an Italian company that's also based partially in Seattle called Look Lateral, and they do high-value artwork on a blockchain. And so it is happening. You are seeing real use case scenarios of blockchain that is going to impact our lives. Mm-hmm. So it's very cool.
Yep.
Awesome, guys. Well, we're almost 45 minutes into this here. I don't think people want to hear us talk. people want to hear us talk too much more today, but this has been fun chatting with you guys, and we should make this a regular occurrence here until there's actual real news that we can talk about.
Yeah.
So, so does anybody have any last comments they want to make? Otherwise, we'll get to the wrap up here.
Yeah. Let's. Can we touch on delegation real quick?
Yeah, sure.
So Mike, Mike's mycryptodelegate.com. You want to explain to the folks how this is going to work? If they don't want to be a baker in the network, they want to grow their stake.
Yeah, well, I mean, everybody who owns Tezos has the right to bake on their own, and there's a lot of really great explanations on the Reddit page, GitHub, and GitLab, and it's really relatively self-explanatory on how to do it. But a lot of people just simply don't want to. A lot of people are not technical. They want to do their daily lives, but they still want to benefit from growing their Tezos stake. And so they can delegate to a delegate who does it professionally. So there's me, my crypto delegate, that's me. There's Tezigator. There's going to be other ones that pop up that are going to do a good job of taking your delegation and making your Tezos for you and then sharing in the profits. But one thing that people just need to remember is that just because there are delegate companies like mine, you can do it yourself. Everyone can bake their own bread, or you can go to a baker and buy the bread. And that's the great thing about this platform, is that it's either easily self-served or easily delegated. And so what will happen is that you'll just simply type in the delegation code or copy paste into your Tezos wallet, hit the button saying delegate, and it'll automatically happen through the blockchain that the person who is the delegate like me would find out, and then we would pay you as the Tezos start to bake and start to grow, essentially.
Cool. And so I guess each delegation service is going to come up with their own reward bonuses for the how do we define those who choose a delegate again, Mike? Those who choose a delegate.
Like I'm a
stakeholder.
A delegator. So if you are a stakeholder, you own Tezos, therefore you own a stake. You are a delegator of your stake to a delegate.
Right, exactly.
The delegate, but you can be your own delegate, so you can delegate to yourself.
True.
So it is a little bit confusing, but it'll all be fairly self-explanatory once the system launches. And we're planning on putting together some instructional information, so it should be pretty easy. We need to find out the information ourselves first, and then we'll educate people.
Yeah, we've spun up a Riot group of folks who are planning on running delegation services, so they can start coordinating from an information sharing perspective and so forth and so on. If anyone out there is making a making a significant investment, has the technical chops to be building delegation services, reach out to myself or to Mike, and we'll get you into that group.
Yeah, I most definitely need to. I would like to go ahead and try to run my own node as well. Like I said, in the past, I figured out how to communicate with different blockchains and build wallets and code wallets by just watching YouTube videos of people who have uploaded the instructions. And so a visual of it really helps those who aren't as technically savvy, right? But it's not rocket science neither. And so if something like that happens, I'm good to go.
Yeah.
Or maybe Mike can show me, or
just give me a call. I'll show you. And then maybe you can make a video for your YouTube and educate the world.
There we go. Boom, baby. Boom. Tezos is coming. Tezos.
But you have to have your music in the background. You have to have the Tezos soundtrack playing in the background while you set up your node.
3.0. You know it's coming. Yeah, it'll be there.
Very good.
All right. So the Bard has got his Tezos soundtrack. Also, if y'all haven't listened to that, we'll link it up here in the video. Let's give it a wrap. Thanks, guys, for coming on board here today. Been a lot of fun, and we will endeavor to do this again real soon, and maybe we'll bring some new guests in. So if anybody has suggestions for guests that should join us here on our Tezos Today chat, we'd love to wire them in. Talk to y'all later.
Fantastic. Have a great one.
See you guys later.